Good morning, everyone. Today, I am going to discuss about your seventh chapter, Life under the Delhi Sultanate period. India is an ancient country with a rich culture which has been changed and shaped over a very long period of time. Ancient India was broken up into several kingdoms ruled by kings. Each had its own set of rules and customs. While we have detailed accounts of the military and political history of the medieval period, very little is written about the society. We can recount the social history of this only period from the accounts of travelers like Ibn Battuta, writings of Amir Khusharu and Nijamuddin Ahmed. Society changed with the arrival of the Muslims. New ideas were infused and with a central administration under the Sultan. This period created new culture known as the Indo-Islamic culture, which left its mark on every aspect of the existing Indian society. Society was divided uh, by the caste system. There was also divided between the Hindus and the Muslims. Intercaste marriages and socialization were uh, frowned upon. The Hindus had to pay higher taxes and often converted to Islam to avoid taxes. The society divided into four equal halves. They were aristocracy, it was ruling class and consisted the Sultan and his royal families, the nobles and the Hindu priest and the landlords also. Next, the priest, Brahmins, Hindu Brahmins, and ulema among the Muslims, they were the important religious classes. Next, township. Merchants, traders, and artisans lived in towns. The goods made by the artisans and craftsmen were sold both within and outside the country. And lastly, the peasants. The peasants lived in village who were very poor, and most peasants were very poor and struggled to make their ends meet. The caste system that is prevailed among the Hindus are extremely. Hindus women enjoyed the respectable positions in the family, but in the society their positions was deplorable. Social evils like the polygamy, sati, and the devdasi system prevailed. Widows were not allowed to remarry, and women could not inherit property. Girls were not even given any education. Beside this caste system, Muslim women did not enjoy privilege in the society either. They had to remain scheduled behind the parda. Muslim girls too were not given education. Sati was not prevalent among the Muslims. Hindus were mostly vegetarian, while Muslim are non-vegetarian food. The Islamic principles of equality attracted the Hindus, embedded the customs of new society, but retrained their traditional customs. The mingling of cultures giving birth a new style, dressing, food, and classes. The Indian society under the Sultanate was divided into four major classes: the ruling classes or the nobles, the religious leader or the ulema, the traders and merchants known as the urban classes, and the village people known as the peasants. The nobles are very powerful group. Most of the nobles are Turks or Afghan. The nobles were granted land for their services. This land was called Ikta. The practice of giving grants of land came to be known as the Iktadari system. The nobles who received the Iktas are called the Iktadars. Next, trade. Trade was an important activity. Internal and external trade were also carried from Delhi, Lahore, Lucknow, Daulatabad, and several other places. Exported items like mm, textile, handicraft, spices from India. And foreign trades also flourished in India with China, the Malay Islands, Malaysia, West and Central Asia, and East Africa also. Sultan Iltutmish started the minting of the silver tanka. Religion, Bhakti and the Sufi were the most popular during the Sultanate period. Their both religion introduce new ideas and the principle of equality, a classes society, and the ideas of brotherhood and unity under the God attracted the masses. Administration. Here, administration divided into different parts. Number one, the court, where Sultan and his associates ruled over the Sultanate period. And his departments, the Sultan was head of the institution, and their power became decentralized in this period, like Diwani Ujirat, concerned with finance, Diwani Risalat, concerned with religious matters, Diwani Arj, concerned with military matters, and Diwani Insha, concerned with royal correspondence. There are there are four departments or pillars of the empires. Next, ministers. The Sultan selected nobles, head of the different departments of the state. Number one, the Wazir was the prime minister. Qazi was appointed for the post, who look after official kept a record of revenue and the expenditure, and the Bakshi was a paymaster of the army, and Arj-e Mamlik post was overall in charge of the army. He and his officers recruited, equipped and trained soldiers. Cultural development. Number one, architecture. During the Sultanate era, the genius of both Hindu and Muslim craftsmen merged to give rise to a new style known as the Indo-Islamic style. The Muslims introduced the true or the pointed arch and the dome in the Indian architecture for the first time. These were ornate and intricately decorated and carried verses from the Quran. Later, Indian design and motifs like flowers and the lotus were added. The two main features used in the buildings of this period were the arch and the dome. And there was no longer the need to construct pillars to support the roof. Some buildings also used the minaret. Most early structures were of red sandstone. Later, monuments were made of stone covered with plaster. They were decorated with floral and were also designed by many small motifs. In many structures, motifs such as swastika, lotus, and bell were used. Monuments. Here, monuments were divided into two parts. Number one is Delhi Sultanate period, and number two is regional kingdoms. In the Delhi Sultanate period, the Delhi Sultans built many monuments, like Qutbuddin Aibak built Quwat ul Islam Mosque in Delhi and Arhai Din Ka Jhopra in Ajmer in 1193. And Qutbuddin Aibak also started the construction the Qutub Minar. So here are all of the monuments built by Delhi Sultans in the Sultanate period. On the other hand side, monuments of regional kingdoms in the Islamic period of architecture influenced the regional kingdoms. Like Ahmad Shah of Gujarat founded the Ahmedabad and decorated it with grand structures. The most famous among them, the Jamai Masjid and Sidi Sayyid Mosque. The latter being famous for its beautifully carved jali screens, or the Adina Masjid in Pandua and the Dakhil Darwaja in Gaur are the most impressive monuments of the Iliya Shahi and the Hussein Shahi rulers of Bengal. In Jaunpur, Ibrahim Shah Sharke built the Atla Masjid. So here basically two differences between the Sultanate monuments and the regional monuments. Languages. After the fall of Constantinople, Delhi became the hub of culture in the east. The Mongols destroyed the culture centers of Central and Western Asia. That's why many scholars fled to Delhi. Sultan Balban gave high offices to men from distinguished families, many of whom were scholars. Sultan Alauddin Khilji was also a patron of scholars. The peace and prosperity during his reign enabled nobles to follow the examples of the Sultan and the patronize literature. Modern Indo Aryan languages, mostly North Indian based, started emerging in the 19th and 10th centuries. Oriya and Bengali in the east, Marathi in the west, and the Hindi and related languages in the central India. Many uh, languages developed in that area, in that period time, that is Prakrit and Sanskrit. Uh, the two forms of Hindi, Baraj and Awadhi, became most popular. Punjabi and Sindhi also grew in importance. Other regional languages also flourished in this time, and the Turkish introduced the Persian and Indian culture. It became the language of administration, and Hindi and Persian give birth a new language, that is Urdu. Urdu means camp because this language developed in the camps of the soldier. Literature. In this time, many significant work was done in the fields of architecture, literature. Uh, Ramayan, the Puranas, the Ramayana, and the Mahabharata came to be translated in different regional languages. Sanskrit Many Sanskrit works also translate into Persian and Arabic. Amir Khusro was well known in Persian poet. Okay, and also Vidyapati translate Maithili languages from Bengal. Next, paintings. Painting was an important art form during this medieval period. Palaces, and the temples were decorated with the murals. Kings and other rich people patronized painters. From the Sultanate period onwards, painting depended entirely on royal patronage. The art of painting miniatures began to develop during this period. Kings and the nobles employed artists to decorate and illustrate books. The court painters made portraits of the rulers. Music. Islamic forbids encouragement of music, and some of the early sultans did not patronize music. Sultans like Balban, Jalaluddin Khilji, Alauddin Khilji, and Muhammad bin Tughlaq were great patrons of music. The Turks also brought with them music and the musical instrument. Musical instruments like the rabab and the sarangi were brought into India. The sitar was developed during this period. Before the advent of the Turks, music was used for religious purpose. Bhajans were songs sung in praise of God. Alauddin patronized the South Indian musician Gopal Naik and the poet and the musicians in his court. Khusru combined Indian and Persian elements in music and introduced some new ragas like Iman, Zilip, and the Sazgari. He also introduced a new element in the Qawwali style of music through the Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq band music. It was revived under the later Tughlaqs. The melody Khayal was introduced to Indian music during this time. The Bhakti and the Sufi saints popularized group singing. The Sufi saints organized musical gatherings in which both uh, and commoners and skilled musicians participated. Bhakti saints also used devotional music to spread their messages. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Mirabai expressed their bhakti through devotional songs. Lastly, the rulers of the Jaunpur and the Gwalior were great patron of music. Two great works on music, uh, Ghunial ul Munias and the Sangit Shiramani were compelled to Jaunpur. Sultan Hussain Shah Sharki of Jaunpur took great interest in music. He is believed to have created many new ragas. Raja Man Singh Tomar of Gwalior was also fond of music. He wrote book on music, Man Kautuhal, that means curiosities of Raja Man Singh. So, beside this, a distinctive style of music developed in the kingdom of Kashmir and also Gujarat and Malwa. Thus, this period of Delhi Sultanate witnessed the development of a composite culture in India. This trend was reflected in the regional kingdoms of that emerged during this period. So, here is the here stop today's discussion. So you go through all the chapters and write down all the points which I written here as a PDF format and learn and also go through all the chapters carefully. Next day, I will discuss about your civics portion, that is Constitution of India. Thank you.